Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the BBB podcast. It's your host, Sarah, and today I have Sabrina with me, who I want to know all about her life because she is living a unique, rural, off-grid kind of life, and I think that's way cool. Obviously, everyone knows I lived in my van and had my solar and all that. But Sabrina is here today to talk about her experience kind of being raised in like 12-step programs and um, being a mom with BPD. And I'm just going to let her introduce herself. So, Sabrina, tell us who you are and why you're here.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Sabrina. I am 35 years old. I'm a wife and a mom of two. Um, I did grow up in a 12-step program. Um, One of my impulsivity issues is I just moved 5 hours away from home, bought a little cabin in the bush. We're off grid, and I have moved around quite a bit, but I think that this is going to be it. I think this is home. And yeah, just kind of living the everyday life with BPD and trying to maintain as much of a normalcy as I can.
Yeah, it can be hard to do. Tell me about like living off grid means having to do a lot of like daily tasks that you don't have to do in normal life. Like, for example, managing solar and the generator and the cutting of wood or whatever it is. Um, I find sometimes those tasks to be very dysregulating. How is that for you? Like, if shit isn't working, I just want to throw it across the room.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I almost like took apart my entire deck. Like I had a rage episode a little while ago. My barbecue wasn't working. I couldn't use the inside oven, and I like kicked my barbecue, like punched it, and oh my gosh, I almost put it right through the railing on my deck. It can be very dysregulating. But as far as the things that I know I need to do, I think it helps. Like I actually enjoy chopping wood and like stacking it, and like it gives me, I mean, I'm not a very active person, so like that alone gives me like my little daily dose of dopamine, right? Um yes, I mean I think it's really good for me. It helps me be mindful.
Yeah, and there is that like sense of accomplishment of like
Yeah.
I'm creating this life. It's not like the life is created for me kind of a thing. Like this is intentional.
Yes, yes, of course. There was I guess it was probably about 2 months ago. I had a load of like 4 cords of wood delivered while my husband was away at work. And like I needed to chop it, stack it, like cut all of our kindling, do everything. And when he got home, he asked me if I wanted help. And I was like, no, like I need to accomplish this whole thing, like start to finish. Um, I mean, including me even like purchasing it, right? Because he makes most of the purchases and I'm not working right now. So I was just like, I need to do this thing. I need to, like, this is my contribution, I guess, right?
Yeah,
So he's finally learning. He's like, you know what? This is your thing. This is your thing. And you're much better at starting fires than I am. So,
I love that. It's funny you say that because like anytime my husband asks me if I want help, it's like a huge trigger for me and I like start to have a freak out and a shutdown like, "Oh, you think I'm not capable? You think I'm not like smart? I'm stupid? Fuck you." Like that's like
mhm.
I mean, I don't always say fuck you, of course. I try not to, but like it's an instant switch in my brain.
Yeah, yeah, I get that for sure.
So tell me about growing up. You grew up in a 12-step program, which it's funny, I was just like at a dinner the other day with friends and someone was like talking shit about 12-step and it's hard because there's some really great components and then there's some not so perfect components of it. And I was like struggling to listen to her because like there's times in my sobriety where I don't work the steps and I don't have a sponsor, but like I have to jump into a meeting just to like stay sober. And so you grew up in this program, kind of take me through like what was childhood like and sounds like mom was an addict and yeah, give me that picture.
Okay, yeah. So I actually don't recall my mom ever drinking. I was really young. I was only 6. So she got sober in 1996. My only recollection of her drinking was she disappeared. It was her last drink, and this was kind of like she knew this was going to happen. So she disappeared for like 3 days on Easter weekend, and I didn't know where she was. And I was 6. My older brother was home. He was 19, and it was hard. I missed her so much. Like, but he wouldn't tell me where she was, right? So, I mean, anytime she shared her story at a meeting, um, she would bring in these notes that I wrote her at 6 years old. Like, I would write, like, I don't know where you are. I miss you so much. I'm sleeping in your bed every night. Like, I'm lonely, you know. But I'm really grateful that I don't remember her drinking other than that. And yeah, it was kind of like her last hurrah, right? She was home for Easter Monday and everything was normal. She started the program. So I was, just running around church basements at 6 years old. And by the time I think I was 11, I had joined Alateen. And it was difficult for me because I didn't feel like I could relate to a lot of these kids because I didn't remember my mom like actively drinking. But looking back now, there were skills for sure that I developed, right? Just even like just the simple slogans, like I think one thing at a time was kind of like my like intro to like being mindful and mindfulness and live and let live, just all of these different slogans. I look back, like the big book in my house was like our Bible. We weren't like, I didn't come from a religious background, but I think that I definitely gained a lot of skills, which was really helpful because I needed help myself. Since the time I was about 8 years old, I probably could have benefited from therapy. But I was also really good at hiding everything from my mom. So she didn't know that I was angry and like suffering from all of these like feelings that were too big for me to understand. I think I started self-harming at 10. 8. I remember being 8 years old. I was in grade 3 and it was my first blackout episode of like rage. It was on the playground and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know why. And people at school talked about that for like the next 2 years. Like this.
No.
So, I mean, I had some skills just from the 12-step program and like I said, slogans and whatnot, but I needed more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about
Mhm.
like an attachment wound, like your mom leaving for that weekend and you're saying, like, I'm sleeping in your bed. I'm so lonely. I miss you. I'm scared. I'm whatever. Like, that's a
Mhm.
huge attachment wound.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then, of course, you're like afraid to tell mom I'm angry or I'm whatever because the fear like that a child develops is you're going to go away again.
yeah, yeah. Just in the last year, I realized like that my mom passed away in 2016. Um, but just in the last year, I realized that she was very like emotionally fragile, and I didn't realize it at the time, and even as an adult, but I felt responsible for that. Like my mom kind of put me on a pedestal. My mom had 3 kids, and I was the only one she got to raise full time. So I was kind of like, I mean, I was her golden child. Like she almost idolized me. So I felt like I had to keep that up, right? There was like this persona, there was this expectation, which even through my teenage years, like I was a horrible kid, but I never backtalked. I always came home. Like I could have been high as fuck, but I came home and she didn't know, right?
Mm. It makes me so sad that you never got to experience the like kind of thing that we do in our 30s and late 20s or whatever of like unenmeshing and starting to have like a healthier relationship with our parents. And like, you didn't get to do that with your mom.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many questions that I wish that I had have asked her, and I didn't because it was uncomfortable. I didn't want to make her sad.
Yeah.
I mean, like we both knew she was dying, but I couldn't ask her all of these things that I would have like. So like you, her she actually had three brothers commit suicide as well.
Such a
And
weird thing.
it was so weird. And her dad actually in front of her when she was 12.
Oh, fuck.
So like there was I don't know, but all of these things she never told me. Like she did her best. She protected me from all of the things that, could have and likely would have happened to me if she wasn't super overprotective until I was old enough to, leave the house, and I learned to lie really young, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most common things that happens when you have that like insecure, anxious attachment is I'll do anything to keep you. So whatever that means, lying, cheating,
Mhm.
stealing, like so that you think that I'm good and then
Yeah.
you love me. But I mean, goddamn, I don't know how your mom hid all of that from you.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm in a way, I'm really glad for you that you didn't have the experience of like the aftermath of those deaths, but then also like how confusing to learn later on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it would have been nice to kind of hear her side of the story, right? She did tell me a couple of them, but when I was much much older. But then the only uncle that I actually knew, because the rest had passed away before, the only uncle that I actually knew when he passed away, she told me that he died of rabies. I was 5, so she told
Rabies.
me rabies.
Well, that'll make you afraid of a bat or a dog or a what the fuck ever.
They were like barn cats apparently. But so it was embarrassing because I think I was 24 or 25 before my dad told me like you have got to be kidding me. Like that's not how you think that he passed away, right? Like but I don't know how many times I had probably told that story to people, right?
Yeah.
I
It's
had
the
an uncle die of
story you
rabies.
knew. So were mom
Horrible.
and dad separated or together?
Yeah, no, they I think I was 7 months old when they divorced.
Hmm.
I had two other older brothers. Um, my the one closest in age with me. Okay, so the oldest one she had when she was 15. She got married, she had a baby. They were too young. He was raised by his paternal grandparents. And then my mom also had five marriages. Oh, good, you're vaping.
Oh my God. I love your mom. 5 marriages.
Five
That
marriages, and my dad had four.
if my husband and I get divorced, then I'm gonna just hit 3, 4, 5, 6, just like bam, bam, bam. I love it.
Goals.
I love
Goals.
it. So a lot of like interpersonal chaos growing up. Was dad also an addict?
No, he wasn't. Yeah, no, I can't say that, but he has some issues, and when we've never had really a good relationship until recently. Even then, I make him believe that it's a good relationship, but I have a lot of quote unquote daddy issues that I'm working through finally now. But um, it's been very difficult. He was really inconsistent. I would see him he raised my other brother who was only 2 years older than me, because I think like it was the 90s, and it was kind of like common for the men to have their rights as well. So oftentimes they would split up siblings. So that's what happened. Um, I mean, she basically lost my oldest brother to a custody battle, but my other brother was it was just why not just split up the kids, right? The daughter will be raised by her mom and the son will be raised by his dad. But he was very inconsistent. I was supposed to see him every other weekend, and I would wait on my porch for hours after school on Friday and he wouldn't come. And my mom was so sweet. Like she'd be like, "Hey, why don't you come in and have dinner?" She knew he wasn't coming, but she wouldn't, she never talked poorly about him or anything. And I would wait until like Saturday morning. I would wait until I finally would give up. Okay, he's not coming. So
Mm.
yeah, there's definitely been some issues and inconsistencies with my dad.
We'll talk about rejection sensitivity, right? I mean, all of these
Oh,
things
yeah,
just like kind of
yeah,
breed the symptoms of BPD.
yeah, yeah. And it's one of those things because I do believe that my mom had BPD. It's like I also went through like, traumas that would quite possibly like cause it, right? So did I come by it honestly, or did I come by it through my past traumas? So I think I feel like I am poster child BPD. It's unfortunate that I was like so old when I did get diagnosed. I was diagnosed with like bipolar 2, and of course, like anxiety, depression, everything else, right?
Yeah, the
But
just kind of classic BPD stepping stones. So,
yeah.
how old were you when you got diagnosed?
So, 31 when I was diagnosed the first time. I was an outpatient at a hospital. I had a couple attempts trying to get myself into the hospital, like, for a hold. My husband was trying to get me in there on a hold, and they never did. And we went to multiple hospitals. We went to, you know, hospitals that like specialized in psychiatric wards, and they would never hold me for more than a day, more than a night. And there was times when they would release me, and I had fully planned on just leaving and ending my life before my husband could be there to pick me up. He was always there first. um, Anyways, yeah. So I was doing a like 12-week DBT program as an outpatient at the hospital, and it was 6 or 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday, for that 12 weeks. I had to go off work. Um, that entire time, I was so disassociated. Like, so I had the diagnosis and I don't recall it. So 2 years later, I would have been 33. I came home from the doctor's office crying, like hysterical. And I'm like, you would never believe what just happened. My doctor says I have borderline personality disorder. And my husband, like, his jaw hit the floor. He looked at me and he was like, are you kidding right now? And I'm like, no, like, isn't that horrible? Do you believe that? He goes, but you know that you have it. Like, this happened already, and you reacted the same way that you're reacting now. But I have no recollection.
Oh my
It's,
God. It's
it,
so scary when you have like this like loss of time.
yeah, it is. And I lost a lot of time. Like my youngest daughter, she's 8 now, but for a good 4 years of her childhood, I don't remember. Like, I don't remember her first steps. I don't remember her first words. I was so dissociated, and I mean, I was there physically, and I know that I was like hands-on and loving, but I hope that she can't see past that. I've asked my husband if I was as loving as I am in my head, and he said I definitely was, to her anyways, to my children, not so much to him.
Yeah.
But
But you're not raising him.
right, no.
Um, I hate this whole culture of be present, get off your phone. Like, you don't need to be on your phone while you're doing X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, on the flip side of that, like a lot of people will dissociate and not remember a beautiful event. So, like, recording it or taking photos of it while it's happening is a part of how they are present with it.
Yeah, yep, I agree.
I
Yeah,
love
there's
that
so
that's
much.
so accessible now.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like, it first got brushed off as being postpartum depression, right? And then grief, because like my mom passed away 2 weeks before I had my youngest daughter. So it was like I didn't have time to grieve, so I was just like right in it, doing the parenting thing again. Um, I mean, the first time I was a parent, I actually on my 16th birthday, like, I went off of my birth control. So, but I had a sort of long-term boyfriend, and we wanted to have a baby. He was older, and I'm like, sure, let's do that. I got off my birth control, purposely had a baby at 16, and like, so impulsive, right?
Yeah.
So impulsive.
But it's also
But that was the
like,
best thing for me. I don't think I would have been alive if I didn't do that. Like, being a mom was I don't know, like, my calling, I guess, Like, I needed that. I needed that.
some people click in when they have a baby and some people don't. And I love that you just
Mhm.
like clicked in, right? And I mean, it's really not surprising to me that you had a baby at 16 because your mom had a baby at 15, right? And so, like, that that kind of like generational stuff happens. And now, like, it's your job to make sure that your daughter, if you have a daughter, doesn't have a baby at 16, right? And that's what
Yeah.
you're going to do to
Well,
the
and my
extent that you can.
my oldest daughter, she when she turned 17, we celebrated. I was like, this is amazing. And now in less than a month, she's going to be 18. And I'm like, I just saw her on the weekend and I was like, yeah, like, look at, like, you're going to be eight, you're going to become an adult and not be a parent. That is huge, huge for our family. Like, I mean, I dragged her into the gynecologist office at, I think, 14 or 15 for an IUD, but like, you're not doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the way that you kind of stabilized, presuming that you feel like you're stabilized. You did this hospital stuff, which was a shit show. To be honest, I would never move to Canada because of the mental health. It's ironic that they say healthcare for all, but not mental health care for all, and the mental health system up there is an absolute disaster. I would unfortunately keep this country and Trump over the mental health stuff, which is that's insane to say. But anyways, topic for a different day. So you did hospitalization and then you did intensive outpatient. And what has been the kind of step to more stability for you?
Well, I mean, I've tried so many different medications. My doctor at the time never tried two medications at once for until a few years ago. I had never been on more than one medication and nothing ever worked. And then it was treatment resistant depression. And I was on the wait list for ECTs. And that was just it. And like, I was like, okay, well, this is my last shot at, not feeling this way. And I know you hate it, but like this, like radical acceptance, I just feel like I have to make it better for myself. Like I know that it's treatment resistant. I didn't do the ECTs, and I'm at this point in my life, I'm grateful that I didn't. I am on one medication, so I am taking Lubutrin, and it's helpful. It is helpful. I don't feel like I'm where I should be, but I also think that where I should be, I kind of convinced myself that that doesn't exist. Like I think this is my baseline. Um, but I get sad. Like people laugh, and so many people can fake laugh, and I can't. I've just never been like the type of, I don't know. So I see happy people, and I'm like, I just have to accept the fact that like that's not me. No amount of treatment, like will bring me to that. Found a medication that helps. It's keeping me alive, and just doing some work with a therapist is huge, and then doing the things that I know brings me a small amount of joy, right? So like I have to get my dopamine from wherever I can. Like if I'm having a really really down day, like I will go and just put my hands in soil. I may not feel like gardening that day, but like I'm like, hey, my hands need to be in soil. Or like exercise, like I said earlier, I'm not like an active person. So, but I need to like get my heart rate up. I need to sweat a little bit. Um, I would like to be at a point one day where I can do that every day and kind of stay on top of it.
It's hard.
It's like actually just living day by day. Every day I
Mhm.
have to do something that's going to be, you know,
Yes.
give me some kind of serotonin and dopamine.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
like I try to treat my body good, right? Like I try to eat healthy when I can, like I see a naturopath, so I'm, just, and I tell her like the other stuff that like my GP can give me, like it doesn't help. So like I need you, heal your gut, and like that's where your serotonin comes from, and yada yada. Like I haven't eaten gluten for 2 years. That helped a lot. Just try to be good to myself, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Have you ever tried a mood stabilizer?
So no, no, they've never given me a mood stabilizer.
I think there's more waiting for you.
Yeah, should I? Yeah, so I actually have a new doctor now that I haven't met yet. Um, Currently I have a raging UTI, so I'm gonna have to make an appointment with him.
Ugh,
And
the worst.
so yeah, I've thought about it. Like my mom was on a mood stabilizer.
I'm
Yeah.
not a prescriber. My job is not to give you any advice, obviously. Anybody
Mhm.
listening, like the NASW, don't come for me. I'm not giving advice. But there is a ton of evidence that shows that mood stabilizers are very helpful for people with BPD. And I can say personally, my life changed a lot when I got on lamotrigine. When I got on lithium, my life changed a lot, a lot. And lithium is the only medication that's scientifically proven to help with suicidal ideation.
Yeah, that's an everyday thing for me. Like I struggle with it every single day. It's almost like an obsession. I mean, I was and this obsession came way before I knew anybody in my family had passed by suicide. I was 10 years old writing notes and drawing pictures and like horrible, horrible, like, and still to this day at 35 years old with so much to look forward to and like so much life that I'm living, it's still like every day it's right there in my head. And
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know if it's more of a fear. Like I don't, it's not like I don't have a plan, but it pops into my head so many times a day that sometimes I wonder, like maybe I have OCD, maybe it's just like this obsessive compulsive thought that's constantly there. Um, and maybe it has nothing to do with like the history of suicide in my family or the suicidal ideation, you know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things that my therapist told me as someone who's in the same boat is like, well, what if this isn't like that you actually want to die by suicide, but you are using this as a kind of coping strategy for like dissociating from the pain and just thinking about like what it would be like to not have the pain. And as I've kind of like implemented, radical acceptance, as I've kind of implemented that concept, I still have the thoughts, but they're not distressing to me anymore. The situation that I'm in that causes the thought is the distressing thing, but not like the thought.
Mm.
The thought I'm just like, all right, fine, here we are again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's helpful. It's helpful because then I'm in it, I can get out of it. Like it's such a horrible thing to live with every single day, even when you're not sad, like even when you do have so much to live for and you recognize that. And like you, I have animals like, oh, and we do not deserve them, like they literally are just everything, like, and I'm sometimes I think like, what did I do to deserve this? Right. Like the constant love and affection I get from my animals and I get it from my husband and my kids, but it's just not the same. It's not pure, you know, it's not as pure.
I think like the question we should be asking ourselves is really like, why wouldn't I deserve this? Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to do or be anything to be deserving of good things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My husband says that all the time to me.
Easier said than done, obviously.
Yeah. 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 If I could only control my thoughts, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it sounds like to me like you have like, major depressive disorder or whatever, like where it's like when you're trying to like treat the depression instead of like some of the things that kind of cause it, like the BPD type symptoms, right? Then it all gets like so wonky when you have these like multiple diagnoses. And everybody with BPD that I know has like these kind of intersecting woven things where it's like, okay, well, what do you treat? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the primary thing that you treat? Because, like, if we can regulate our mood, then maybe we won't be doing the crazy shit that makes us feel depressed, right? Like, it's just like, sometimes you just don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. Like I'm constantly stuck in the cycle of doing the crazy shit that makes me feel better. I still, at my age and like owning a home and having a family, like I still can't get control over my spending, my credit cards, and then like the lying about it. Like I paid off my credit cards and handed them over to my husband, but then I stole them back out of his wallet, right? and we still haven't discussed it. I still haven't, it's been months and they're already like maxed out again. But like and I understand that I do these things because I'm trying to feel better, you know? But in the end it just makes me feel worse.
Yeah. I hope you bought something great though. Like,
I
did
mean, I'm
we
sure I
get
bought lots of
anything
good
good?
things. Probably.
I want a fucking hot tub in my
Mm.
greenhouse that my husband is building me. I want a hot tub like at the back end of the greenhouse so I can just like sit in hot water and bubbles and like watch my plants, you know?
Oh,
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
The house that we just sold and when we moved here, I had a hot tub and it was amazing. And it was one of the things that I had to realize like we're never gonna have that on solar, right? So we're kind of thinking about like a wood-fired hot tub, which seems like a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You'll have to get creative about how to do these things, but maybe you can do the wood-fired sauna. Like that would
That's
be a
I know
lot more accessible.
saunas have never really been my thing, but I think I might have to compromise with the sauna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
maybe an indoor bathtub because then I get like both, right?
Yeah. So the spending thing is interesting because like I know a lot of people who are like addicts and in recovery and then it kind of like transitions into like compulsive spending and I I wouldn't say that my spending is compulsive by any means because I have like a severe money fear, but I do know that in the last year I've bought like clothes and shoes and things like jewelry and things like that that I never would have bought before that's like a lot more impulsive. So, are you an addict? Are you like what's your relationship like to addiction?
So I probably should not drink. Um, I have spent some time myself in AA. I think I was 18 by the time I had like 1 year. I had it 1 year sober. Um, Went out to celebrate my 1 year sober. So I've had like a couple non-consecutive years clean. And I now the only way I can like have any kind of like lengthy period without alcohol is if I do it because of a different reason other than that I have a problem. I'll be like, well, I need it for my skin. You know, if I don't drink for 6 months, it'll be good for my skin or it'll be good for my gut health. But if I tell myself that I need to not drink because like of the fact that I have a problem with it, I can't do it. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, you're not there yet.
Hmm.
Most of us have a thing that like gets us there, but it's at least kind of like in the back of your head, like a lingering thing of like, this might be good.
But the fact that like, I mean, I don't want to ever have a thing that gets me there
I don't
because
want you
I've
to either.
seen things, like the rock bottom. Ugh.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. But I mean, you're at risk for that, and I think that insight is good. And also like, okay, well, what if your gut health is the thing that keeps you sober? Like that harm reduction, like
Oh,
6 months of sobriety is better than none.
yeah. And like the whole fake it till you make it, right?
Absolutely. So we don't have a ton of time left, but I want to touch on your parenting. You've got an almost 18-year-old. I would be so emotionally dysregulated with a teenager. Fill me in. What is this like?
So she's actually she believes that she probably has BPD as well. Um, she sees a psychiatrist quite often. She's medicated for ADHD, which seems to help with like her impulsiveness and other things, right? But she actually moved out at 15. So she moved out at 15, got her own place. She works like 60 hours a week. She dropped out of school, but she is getting so much great experience, like life experience, having her own bills, buying her own groceries, having her own really shitty landlord who's also her boyfriend's mother and
Oh
her
my
boss
God,
at work.
nightmare.
Yeah, yeah.
What
So
prompted the move out? How was that for you?
well, she's always been She's always been very defiant. And I just like, I mean, there was no fighting her on it, right? Like I couldn't physically keep her there. We've had police officers involved in our life when she was home since she was about 12, like, so, I mean, it's good. I think that I would much rather her be home and getting an education, but she's quite regulated. She's very mature, very responsible. And that's all I can ask for, right?
Yeah. How was that for you, the emotion regulation piece and the attachment rejection piece, like while you were going through that?
I think it was okay. I think it was okay until we moved away. She said she was going to come, so we went ahead, we sold our house, we bought our house, and she didn't come. There's a lot of other issues there that like we need to kind of get her away from where she's at. But she didn't come. So now like especially with the holidays coming, with Christmas coming, I've never not spent Christmas with her. So and she works Christmas and Boxing Day. So yeah, it's tough now with the holidays. But in the meantime, like when she had actually moved out, like I think things were okay for me.
Yeah, I'm impressed with your acceptance, but I can also imagine like, okay, well, if she's gonna do what she's gonna do, and I can't fucking physically stop her, and it's harming her emotionally to try to force her to stay, and it's harming me emotionally to try to force her to stay, then I mean, this is what we have to do for now.
Yeah, and I look at my relationship with my mom and like everything I did to try to mask what I was going through with her. Like this is so much better for both of us that she can tell me everything that's going on in her life, even if it's way more than I need to know. Um, but kind of from afar, right? Like I can't control it. Um, yeah, I think it's actually good for us. As much as I want her here, it is what it is. And then my other daughter's 8, and she's a freaking saint. She gets that from her dad. Knock on wood. She's very regulated. She's had the ability to like remove herself from like stimuli since she was about 4 or 5, and it's so cute. Like she'll have play dates and she'll just kind of disappear in her room, and I'll kind of knock on the door and say, "Hey, like, are you taking a break? Do you need a break?" And she'll say, "Yep." And I'll just tell her friends, "You know what? She's taking a break. She'll be out in 10 minutes."
That is so impressive.
It's beautiful to see. Like, and I learned so much from her.
Mm.
So much.
She learned that behavior from somewhere though, right? Like she
Well,
learned that from you guys. Because kids don't just like do that.
yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, that's not developmentally appropriate for a 4-year-old. She learned that by observing.
Hmm. Yeah, that is very true.
Well, my friend, this has been a fun conversation. I'm seeing a lot of generational trauma stuff being kind of undone, and it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, this was lovely. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, me too. I feel like we didn't have enough time, so maybe we'll have to do this again. But let's close it by telling people what is one thing that you want folks to know about borderline.
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm just glad you're not asking me what my favorite part about it is. I think acceptance is key, right? Like you just learn so much about yourself. And like I said, I feel like I'm kind of poster child for it. And just knowing that, just feeling knowing that there's other people out there that are feeling the same way is huge, right? Like it's just not. And the education piece, there's so many. When I first for the second time got diagnosed, I was like, personality disorder, like what is that? There's no way, right? But it's not what it sounds like, right? It's not at all what it sounds like.
Yeah. I think the thing I hear people say a lot is like it's not a death sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Sabrina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate your time, and I think everyone's going to love this episode.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bold, Beautiful Borderline podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your content. That's super helpful for me in finding additional folks who want to listen to the show, want to feel seen, family members, partners who want to understand. You can also follow along at Bold Beautiful Borderline on Instagram. For the blog and a more extensive list of resources, go to boldbeautifulborderline.com. There you can also request to be a guest on the show, or you can do my favorite thing and leave a voicemail to be played at one of our future episodes. All of this information can be seen below in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show and get exclusive perks, consider becoming a Patreon member. Your support helps me with creating content to destigmatize BPD and all the other wild mental health struggles that I discuss on this podcast. As always, thank you so much for guests and listeners alike. I love you. Until next time, keep living and seeking joy. Information in this podcast is not medical advice, but rather experience from individuals living with mental illnesses. If you want to try a treatment that you heard about, please consult your treatment team. The music in this podcast was created by a longtime friend of mine, Corey Evans from the Evergreen Band. You can find him on Instagram at @the_Evergreen Band. Cover art was created by my husband, Talon Abbott. Their information is in the show notes. There is no producer for this show. It's all me.